The agent slid the photograph across the table and asked if Daniel recognized the man. The image was old, black and white, slightly blurred, taken from a 1989 security camera. The man in it was younger, thinner in the face, his hair dark where it was now white. But the jaw was the same. The ears, the way he held his shoulders, slightly forward, as if already bracing for something. Daniel looked at the photograph for a long time. He said yes, he had been calling that man every Sunday for 34 years. Ray Corland had lived in Millhaven, Florida for 22 years by the time his son found the clippings. He worked at a hardware store on the main street, inventory, ordering, the occasional customer who needed help deciding between 2 grades of sandpaper. He had coached youth baseball for 3 seasons before his knees gave out. He kept a garden behind his screened porch and tended it with more attention than most people give their work. He was known as quiet, reliable, the kind of man who shows up when he says he will and does not talk about himself much. Daniel was 38. He worked as an accountant in Tampa, 3 hours north, and drove down once a month to see his father. His mother had died of cancer when he was 19. There were no other relatives he knew of. His whole life, it had been the two of them, his father's steadiness, his father's careful habits, his father's refusal to speak about anything before the year Daniel turned 4. He had always known there was a before. Children of private men learn to read the edges of what is never said. He had assumed it was grief, that his father had lost something and built a new life around the silence. He had not asked. Looking back, he was not sure he had known how. In February of that year, he drove down on a Saturday to help clear a water-damaged storage shelf in the garage. Behind a panel of old insulation, pushed to the back of the highest shelf, he found a shoebox that should not have been there. The box held 4 things: a driver's license from Ohio with his father's photograph and a different last name, a photograph of 2 men standing outside a building he did not recognize, a newspaper clipping dated October 14, 1989, and a folded note with a phone number and the words, "Don't call from home." He read the newspaper clipping first. The headline said, "2 men sought in robbery that left bank teller dead." The teller's name was Karen Holt. She was 26 years old. She had been shot once in the chest during a robbery at a savings bank in Dayton, Ohio, and died at the hospital 40 minutes later. One suspect had been apprehended at the scene. The other had fled and remained at large. His name, according to the article, was Raymond Caruso. Daniel sat on the garage floor for a long time. Then he drove back to Tampa without saying anything to his father. He spent 3 weeks not sleeping well, eating badly, going through the motions at work. He called his father every Sunday as he always had and said almost nothing of consequence, listening to his father's voice and waiting for it to sound different than it always had. It didn't. Then he hired a private investigator. Her name was Susan Breivik, 15 years in insurance fraud before she went independent. He told her he needed background on a 1989 robbery in Dayton, Ohio, and a man named Leo Marsh who had been arrested at the scene. He did not tell her why. She did not ask. She came back in 6 weeks. Leo Marsh had been convicted of voluntary manslaughter and robbery in 1991. He received a 17-year sentence and was released in 2001. He was now 63 years old, operating a landscaping business outside Atlanta. He had remarried. He had a stepson who played college football. But Susan had also requested the original investigative file under a public records statute. In that file, buried in the early interview documents, she found 2 witness statements from customers who had been inside the bank during the robbery. Both were asked to describe the shooter. Both described him as shorter than 6 feet, heavy-set, with a wide, thick build. Ray Corland was 6 feet 2 inches tall and had always been lean. Leo Marsh was 5 feet 9 and had always run heavy. The 2 witness statements had been received, logged, and never pursued. They had not been introduced at trial. Leo Marsh had testified that Ray was the shooter, that Ray had planned the robbery, that he himself had only driven the car. The prosecution accepted his account in exchange for a reduced charge. The file contained no record of anyone following up on the physical discrepancy. Daniel drove down to Millhaven on a Thursday evening without calling ahead. He found his father on the screened porch with a paperback. He sat across from him and placed the newspaper clipping on the table between them. His father looked at it without picking it up. He set down his book very carefully. When he looked up, his face was not the face of a man caught. It was the face of a man who had been waiting. He said, "I didn't know there was going to be a gun." He said it the way someone delivers a line they have rehearsed for years and hoped never to need. He told Daniel that Leo had described it as a simple job, cash from an office, no confrontation, nobody hurt. That he had been carrying serious debt from a failed business, pressure from the wrong people. That when Leo pulled the weapon inside the bank, he had frozen. That when the shot was fired and Karen Holt fell, he had run because there was nothing else his body knew to do. And when the news reached him that Leo had been arrested and had told police that Ray was the shooter, he understood there was no version of coming forward that ended with anyone believing him over a man already talking. He said, "I have thought about Karen Holt every single day for 35 years. Daniel went home and did not sleep. He went back to Susan and asked her to keep going. She commissioned a forensic imaging analysis of the 1989 security footage, done by a private firm using enhancement technology that hadn't existed when the footage was first reviewed. The footage was badly degraded, but the reconstruction was clear on one point. The man who raised the weapon was noticeably shorter than the man standing to his left. Ray had been standing to the left. Daniel sat with all of this for 3 more weeks. He had a PI's report, a forensic imaging analysis, 2 suppressed witness statements, and a father who had told him a version of events he could not fully verify. He had a dead woman who would have been 62 that spring. He had Leo Marsh living outside Atlanta, coaching his stepson's recreational league on Saturday mornings, according to photographs Susan had taken from a public park. He thought about what it meant to have the truth and leave it where it was. He thought about Karen Holt's family, whether they had ever stopped waiting for the case to mean something. He thought about his father's garden, the Sunday calls, the button-down shirts, the careful voice. He thought about 35 years of a man rebuilding his life on top of something he could never put down. He did not consult a lawyer. He was afraid that if he slowed down, he would find a reason to stop. He called the FBI field office in Tampa and asked to speak to someone about a cold case fugitive. He brought every document Susan had gathered. He brought the newspaper clipping from the shoebox. When the agent showed him the 1989 photograph, he confirmed that the man in it was his father. Then he handed over the PI report, the witness statements, and the imaging analysis. He said, "I think you need to look at all of it." The agent asked if he understood what he was doing. He said he did. She asked if he had spoken to an attorney. He said no. She asked if he wanted to. He said he just wanted someone to look at the evidence. His father was arrested the following Tuesday morning, taken from the screened porch in handcuffs at 7:45 while the garden was still in shadow. According to the neighbor who watched from her driveway, Ray had already put on a button-down shirt and was holding a cup of coffee. As if he had been expecting the hour but not the day. Daniel found out from a news alert on his phone. He called his father's number anyway. It rang until it stopped. The trial began 14 months later. Daniel testified for 2 hours. He described finding the shoebox, hiring the investigator, confronting his father. He answered questions about Ray's character, the hardware store, the garden, the Sunday calls, carefully and without embellishment. He said he did not know with certainty who had fired the weapon in that Dayton bank in 1989. He said he knew what the evidence suggested. He said he believed a court was the right place to determine what the evidence meant. Leo Marsh arrived with a lawyer and invoked his Fifth Amendment rights on 11 separate questions. The jury watched him decline to answer each one. The refusals registered. The 2 suppressed witness statements were admitted into evidence. The forensic imaging analysis was admitted. A former detective from the original investigation, 81 years old, now living in a care facility in Cincinnati, was deposed by video. He said he did not remember why the witness statements had not been pursued. He said the case had been under pressure to close quickly. He said he was sorry. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Ray Corland was acquitted on all counts. He was 68 years old. He had spent 35 years as a fugitive and 14 months in pretrial detention. He walked out of the Dayton courthouse on a Tuesday afternoon in March, into cold flat sunlight, wearing the same button-down shirt he had been arrested in because it was the only one his attorney had thought to bring. Daniel was standing at the bottom of the courthouse steps. They did not embrace. They stood there for a moment, and then Ray put his hand briefly on his son's shoulder, and they walked to the car without speaking. Leo Marsh was charged with perjury 6 weeks after the acquittal. A second investigation into the original shooting was opened by the Ohio Attorney General's office. As of this telling, neither case has concluded. Ray went back to Millhaven. The hardware store held his job. The owner, who had employed him for 11 years, said later he had never doubted him, not once, not for a day. The garden had gone to weeds while Ray was in pretrial detention. His first weeks back, he pulled things out, turned the soil, started again. He did not talk to the press. Karen Holt's sister issued a statement after the acquittal. She said her family was grateful the case had been reopened. She said her sister deserved to have the truth come out, and she said it quietly, in writing, without further comment. Daniel drove down on the first Sunday after his father came home. They sat on the porch. They did not talk much. His father made coffee and they watched the afternoon light move across the garden, and at some point Ray said, "You did the right thing." Daniel didn't answer. He wasn't sure the words were meant for him specifically. He wasn't sure it was the kind of thing that resolves with a sentence. He still calls every Sunday. The calls are the same length they always were. His father picks up on the first ring, and his voice is the same, careful, warm, the voice of a man who means what he says and does not say more than he means. Some things don't change when the truth comes out. They sit differently, rearrange, waiting to be fully understood. Daniel still does not know, with absolute certainty, whether his father told him the whole truth on that porch in February. He calls anyway.